we have students that just apply and they get rejected from schools. But then when we looked back, we're like, wait, you actually weren't ready to apply. And it's not necessarily that they weren't ready time-wise. They just weren't ready in so many other ways. And if we could have figured that out on the front end, it would have just saved them so much time, money, stress, overwhelm, and just frustration from the application process. So I just don't want that to be you.
Turning dreams into reality in the lab with the
Hey, what's up? How you doing? My name is Joseph Ngugi. I'm a physical therapist, also one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind, where for years we've been helping students just like you get into physical therapy school without wasting time or money. So if that's what you're looking for, you're on the right page, you're on the right platform. Please be sure to listen to this particular training and binge on all of the other free pieces of value and content that we have for you that we've been building out over years to help you get closer to your dream of becoming a physical therapist. And of course, if you enjoy it, be sure to like, subscribe, and of course, share this out with other friends or peers or pre-PTs that you believe would value this. Now, in this particular training, I want to talk about how to know if I'm ready to apply to PT school, because what we've just seen over the years is there just comes a time when, we have students that just apply and they get rejected from schools. But then when we looked back, we're like, wait, you actually weren't ready to apply. And it's not necessarily that they weren't ready time-wise. They just weren't ready in so many other ways. And if we could have figured that out on the front end, it would have just saved them so much time, money, stress, overwhelm, and just frustration from the application process. So I just don't want that to be you. So I'm going to help you out in the next few minutes, but let's talk about it in 3 steps. 3 steps to determine if I am ready to apply to PT school or not. So if you were planning on applying this year, or if you are planning on applying next year, this might be one to really listen to. And then if you're stuck on any of the things that I said, just let us know in the comments below, or reach out to us and we'd be more than happy to break it down for you a little bit further. So let's talk about it. So how do I know if I'm really ready to apply to PT school or not? And one thing that I'll tell you is just don't apply to PT school because you feel like applying. Don't apply to PT school because your friends are applying. That's actually where a lot of the comparison comes from. So I've seen students apply to school simply because they saw their friends applying and they were like, well, if my friends are applying, I don't want to be left behind. So let me just kind of go for it. And then in the process of doing that, they didn't give themselves the opportunity to actually have a strong application. So they applied, got rejected, and then all of a sudden they were like, wait, my friends got into school, I did not get into school, which means that I'm not good as an applicant, or I'm not a strong student. And now it just creates all of these belief systems where you actually feel like you're not good enough to get into PT school. And in reality, you have the ability to, we just were not ready. Does that make sense? And so I'm going to give you 3 very clear steps. And then there's another step that I'm going to share with you at the end that allows you to actually, once you decide whether or not now is the right time to apply, there's a step afterwards that actually gives you the ability to learn how to become an attractive and irresistible applicant to the schools that you'll end up applying to. So keep listening for that. But let's talk about the 3 steps to determine whether or not I should apply right now. So number 1 is very easy. If I am a junior or a senior, this summer, I'll be able to technically apply, because the earliest you can apply for physical therapy school is the summer after your junior year. Now, you have to have certain requirements done within that time frame, but technically you can apply after your junior year. Now, for some students, it makes more sense to wait until after their senior year. And for many others, they are non-traditional students. So they've been out of school for some time and now they're having to go back and take classes. So it really does depend on where you're at in your journey. But if we're going to be super technical, after your junior year or after your senior year, if you are a traditional student, that is when you have the ability to apply to PT school. So I just want to start off with that just so there's no confusion. We do get that question a lot. But let's go to point number 2. So point number 2 is the school selection process and knowing the basics of what those schools want. Now, we will get into the other stuff because the basics is not what helps you get accepted into PT school. And we'll dive into the details here in just a second. But the basics is what lets you know whether or not you'll even have a shot at getting in or not. Does that make sense? And so I need to figure out which schools are going to be the best match schools for me based off of my situation. And once I figure that out, I need to know on a basic level, what do those schools want when it comes to classes, when it comes to the GRE, when it comes to all of those other basic stats-based requirements, and can I pull that off before this summer, or will I have to wait until next summer? You'd be surprised how many students apply to schools and they still have 4 prerequisite classes that are not completed, and they'll get rejection letters simply because they didn't meet the basic requirements that the schools were looking for. Does that make sense? So prerequisite classes, take a look. Have I taken those classes? And if I haven't, will I have taken those classes by the time I'm submitting my application, right? And so if I have 3 classes yet to take, am I going to take those this summer? Am I going to take those this current semester? Am I currently taking them right now? Just like, please be mindful of that. And then look at what will my stats look like, right? What will my GPA look like? Will I have controlled everything in my power? So once you can kind of look at that, then that'll give you a nice objective view as to whether or not you actually have a shot if you leveraged everything in your power, or even got help from us or whatnot. Like if you did everything in your power, would this year still make sense? Because so many students apply to PT school emotionally instead of actually doing the thing that'll actually help you get into school, which is applying objectively, right? So y'all all want to get into PT school, but it's the students that apply objectively that are able to say, wait a minute, what can I control? How do I leverage these things? Those are the students that are not surprised on the other side after they submit their application. Does that make sense? And so then number three is, after that, I need to ask myself this one very, very specific question. If after all of that, you're like, you know what? I still think that this year is the best time for me to apply. The question I'll ask you is one that we actually ask our students that we privately coach inside of our accepted system coaching program. But the question is, if I needed to reapply next year, what would I change? So if I believe that this year is the best year for me to apply, if I had to reapply next year, what would I change? Now, you might listen to this and say, well, I might retake more classes, or I might retake the GRE again so I can get above a 300, or I might do this, that, and the other. If you are giving me a list, then that means that you have not done everything in your power to get accepted now. Does that make sense? If the answer that I would expect, if you're really, really ready, if you're going to do everything in your power to get into school in the most efficient time frame possible for yourself, the answer should be, I don't know. I don't know, because I have done everything I know to do. I have retaken all the classes, all the prerequisite classes that I know will help me get a better prerequisite GPA. I have filtered through the process. I've actually figured out how to pick the right schools for me. I have taken the GRE and I've gotten above a 300 on it because I've leveraged the guidance of people that can actually help me do better on the GRE, because I typically am not good at standardized exams. Does that make sense? And so if your answer is nope, I don't know what I would change, then you are ready to apply. If your answer is well, I would do this, I would retake this, I would retake that, then you're not ready to apply. And believe it or not, whenever you apply to a school and they reject you, right? And some schools actually give you feedback, other schools don't. Most schools will give you the same generic answer. They will tell you, retake your classes, do better on your GRE, all the things that you already knew. And so if you can figure out how to navigate through those now or before you apply your next time, then that instantly gives you more more of an ability to be a strong applicant. Does that make sense? And so this is it. If y'all can go through those 3 steps, first of all, am I a junior/senior, or am I a non-traditional student? Meaning that I've actually done the amount of years academically that are required to even be considered for a PT school. But also, have I selected the right schools and figured out on a basic level what they want? Obviously, there's much deeper layers to that, which is why, we teach a whole bunch of different things to help y'all become irresistible applicants. But if I haven't met the basic things, it's going to be very difficult for the schools to now look at the rest of my application. And then, of course, if I needed to reapply next year, if I'm yep, I still think this year is the year. If I need to reapply next year, what would I change? And if the answer is nothing, you're ready to go, or you will be ready to go. If the answer is I would change this, I would change that, I would change this, I would change that, then you have not done everything in your power. And you just have to ask yourself, am I okay with that? Am I okay with applying knowing that I haven't done everything in my power? Or do I want to make sure that I do not waste this application cycle and I do everything in my power to make sure that I can get accepted as fast as possible? Just remember, every year you don't get into PT school is another year of you not being a physical therapist, which is literally $75,000 to $85,000 down the drain, just like that. Does that make sense? So I hope that part was clear, but there's more. So let's talk about what happens next. Now, if I know when I should be applying, if I know whether it's this year or next year, what's my next move? The next move is to build what we call an acceptance plan, right? When you're applying to PT school, you really want to try your best to guess as little as possible. And the best way to figure out whether or not you're guessing is to basically have people around you that understand this game better than you, and people that have actually been down this path before and can actually help you figure out what your blind spots are. And I'm talking about people that have actually applied to PT school, that have actually helped people get into PT school, like not your family members, not your auntie or your advisor, or someone that has not someone that is unfamiliar with this process from experience, like someone that can actually say, here are some blind spots, here are some things you might be missing, but we need to figure that out because we need to make sure that we are not guessing, right? We need to go deeper into what my personal game plan should be, because the reason why most students compare themselves to others is because they don't have a personalized game plan to themselves. They're watching what other people are doing. They're like, okay, well, you're applying now, maybe I should apply now. You're retaking that class, maybe I should. You're using this resource to navigate through the GRE, maybe I should, as opposed to figuring out what should my game plan be, what should my priority be right now, what should I be working on first, and how am I going to execute that? Do I have the resources to pull that off? That's the question that you want to start asking yourself. And then one of the most important parts is learning how to know the school beyond the stats. Any student can go on the school's website and figure out what the school is looking for stats wise. Any student can go on PTCast and figure out what these schools are looking for. Any student can go to a campus visit. The real question is, how are you going to get to know the school beyond what they've already given to the world publicly? Right? How are you going to get to know their fears? How are you going to understand them in a way that allows you to actually tailor your application for that school in a way that makes them feel like, wait a minute, you're the kind of student we need in our program? How are you going to understand that and then factor that into your essays, into your interviews, and all the other pieces that leverage what we call the human element? Y'all, there's people on the other side that are deciding whether or not you will get that acceptance letter. So don't treat it like this system that is ran by a machine. Treat it like what it is, which is a group of people deciding whether or not you will be in their program. That part is key. That is one of the key reasons why some of our students have gotten into PT school after starting out with GPAs as low as a 2.4, after being rejected 4 years in a row before starting to leverage these things. After being rejected to as many as 20 schools in a given cycle, only to flip things around the next year and only apply to 5 schools and get into multiple schools out of that 5. This is where the game starts to shift, and nobody talks about it. Like, I have never heard anyone talk about applying to PT school from this level. It's always from the level of stats, GPA, get better grades, all that stuff. That's great. Once you figure that out, how do we stand out? It's the human element. Think about how you interact with people. When someone takes the time to understand you, like by asking you questions or by learning about you from your friends or family members, doesn't it feel great? Right? Doesn't it feel great to feel like someone actually understands you? Well, guess what? It feels the same way to the schools that you're applying to, especially when it comes to understanding them and understanding the profession that you're getting into. So that's the level that you have to play at if you want to become an irresistible applicant. I hope that was valuable. And if you enjoy this training, just like, subscribe, share this out, tag us in it. And if you want us to help you navigate through that, your next step is going to ptschoolacceptance.com. Go to ptschoolacceptance.com and join our pre-PT grind network and our super pack community in there. We have tons of value in there. You get like 50 plus observation hours. You get a ton of resources to help you start moving in the right direction with all of the these different things. And of course, we actually give you a strategy call with one of our experts, one of our PT School application experts instantly to help you figure out how to apply these things to your situation and help you get closer to your PT School acceptance. That's the game. If you do that, you will be one step closer to your dream of becoming a physical therapist. If you enjoyed this, we look forward to seeing you on the next training. Have an amazing one. Keep crushing it.